All right. Welcome, everybody. Scott Litman with Lucy here. And today we're going to talk about strategizing or searching, why Lucy should be your next hire. And when I think about this theme, strategizing or searching, I think of how much time is spent in the enterprise looking for data. And if you're in a research insights team, how much value is there in the search versus how much value is there in the time of distilling the research you found, developing strategy, formulating plans? Like, the real value is what you do with the data. But the average research and insights professional at a Fortune 1000 is going to spend anywhere from 5 to 10 hours per week, every week, searching for data they can't find. And if that's the case, there's a huge amount of inefficiency. And if that time could be spent on strategizing, creating value for the business, doing the real work of what you do with the data versus simply logging into 20 different interfaces and 20 different tabs and sending messages out on Teams, we would be able to create more value. And so when we say, why should Lucy be your next hire? We strive for Lucy to be able to help everybody as their cognitive companion with how to save that time and get rid of the time of looking and spend their time on strategizing. So I'm Scott Litman, co-founder of Lucy. I've had a 20-plus year history in marketing services and technology. I've had the good fortune to work with nearly 25% of the Fortune 500 on adoption of digital and emerging technology platforms. And over the last 6 years, and over 100,000 people hours of time and 3 generations of software, I've been leading Lucy and bringing Lucy to amazing customers in the market. And so we're just going to talk about why do we exist? What is the core problem we're about to solve? And in almost every enterprise, there is an exponential growth of data. And when we think about data, there's data that's structured and it's in databases, and there's data that's unstructured. The unstructured is everything that's freeform in PowerPoint, PDF, Word. It's the focus groups in video and assets like that. And while the structured side of the world oftentimes has pretty good tools, the unstructured side, how do I find anything in SharePoint? How do I find anything across a myriad of systems, whether it might be OneDrive for Business or Office 365 and Box and Ignite and G Drive and everything else? It's finding the answers in that data that is so hard. And the reality is that there are all kinds of problems that come about because of this. The first is just the time that is spent looking for information. Mentioned earlier, the average insights person is sitting there. They've got 20 tabs open. Maybe you're watching this video and this is tab number 21. But many times those tabs represent different systems, different logins and interfaces. And it's hard, if not impossible, to exhaustively search all of them, each time looking for effectively the same question, just in different systems and sources. And it consumes time, and it's low value time. And it's the time that, because it takes you so long to do that before you get to the strategizing, that it's the time that costs nights, weekends, or just not having enough time to do the project the way you want to. Another theme we see, though, is the cost of redundancy. And whether it is as simple as I'm running a project and I'm one of thousands of people in the company that works on different brands and teams, and I'm unaware that a predecessor or a peer of mine has done a similar project, so I hire an agency or research company to do the work, that's common. And the idea that because I can't find it, it doesn't exist, that I got to go do it again, that it's Groundhog Day, I got to go do the work, I got to go hire somebody else to do it, it's incredibly expensive. I mean, who wants to spend 2 weeks or 4 weeks or use precious capital in the budget to do something that if I just had the tools, I could find that my company not only already did this, but did it many times over again, which is all too common. One of the things we see is that when data is in different systems and in different formats, there's no consistency to how to search it and ultimately how to tag it. And so that creates challenges in trying to find information. We see in this one has been really pronounced with the pandemic is just the demands on subject matter experts. We do strategy sessions with customers, and the number of times that the subject matter experts will say, I just want to stop answering the same questions over and over again. And if you're a subject matter expert, it's disruptive when everybody's calling on you, whether it's emails, messages in Teams, Slack, or otherwise, but expecting you to interrupt your work to then give them that 5-minute answer. But it can take you out for 30 minutes or longer trying to answer that simple query that's the one that people are asking again and again. So Lucy can free up the subject matter experts to do what they're amazing at and be the subject matter expert. Another one is just the efficiency of sharing knowledge and insights. It is easy to attach a document to an email and send it out, or post it to Teams or whatever channels you have. But do the recipients have the time to read it? And more importantly, will they remember it days, weeks, or months from now when they truly need it? And that part is extremely inefficient. And then one of the last pieces that we see as kind of common challenges that Lucy supports is the preservation of knowledge. People come and go. They get moved to the next project or team. They change job responsibilities. They get promoted, or sometimes they leave the company. In each case, it's the same, which is the data remains behind. It's in the systems, but the knowledge that the data is there went with the people. And the data is almost certainly to go dark. We've seen stats that within 90 days, 95% of all unstructured data in enterprise goes permanently dark. So we think about all those great strategic plans we write, those proposals, those strategy projects, that research we've done, and how likely it is that after a very short shelf life, it'll never be used again. And yet it's still valuable if it could just be brought up at the right time for the right people when they need it. So that's a bit of the kind of the use case around all of that, or some of the common things we see. But what would be kind of cool is probably if you could meet Lucy today. So I'm going to go and we'll do a live demo. This will be very quick. There are dozens of things that we would love, where Lucy would love to get a job interview and impress you with what she can do above and beyond what I'll show today. But let's just start with kind of a quick demo, and we'll even just we'll log out. So this is Lucy. This is very much the out of the box instance of Lucy. But this is live. We support single sign-on. We support multi-factor authentication. We are ISO 27001. And security is a huge piece of our relationship to our customers because of the data we access. Being a standard Lucy, in the right side here, we see some things, quick links where we can, show where you can use traditional publishing to bring content into Lucy, discover zones to feature, latest, greatest content from certain sources, or project boards. But the real key for Lucy is her ability to answer questions. And I'm going to show just a few of these and show how this works. So just with all the stuff going on still with the pandemic, I'm going to ask Lucy, how have businesses been managing their response to COVID? And the first thing we'll notice is that Lucy uses natural language processing and natural language understanding. If I zoom in here on the nature of the question, how have businesses been managing their response to COVID? You talk to Lucy as you would to a colleague. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use keywords, but language has evolved over the past 10,000 plus years so that we can be expressive about what we want. And the difference between being able to say COVID is a keyword versus how a business has been managing their response to COVID, which is far more specific, provides the guidance and guardrails through language so that Lucy can find the right thing. Now, we have ways of working with keywords, but why go keywords if you can express yourself in a complete sentence? And so when we look at the right, Lucy's an answer engine. It's her job to find the best answer from the data a company owns or licenses. She's not out scouring the public web, although we can supplement with public web. But Google's already an amazing natural language search engine. It already is connected to all of the world's public data, and it's free. So we're not going to make that better. But what we're going to do is work with the data that you own or the data you license that is not in the public domain. And by the way, if you combine them together, the public domain will flood out the results. And so you'll get somebody's blog or opinion versus the hard-earned research that you own and or license. And so in this case, Lucy's taking the answers to this question of how a business has been managing their response to COVID. And she has a series of answers, and you kind of see a thumbnail or a preview of the answer to the right here. And if I click into the top one, and they're ranked by Lucy's confidence, she's saying that on page 7 of 36 is what she is an appropriate answer to this question of how our business is responding to COVID. If I go to the next answer, I can see different answers, page 25 of a 33-page document. I can see page of 136. And in each case, Lucy always shows me the source attribution. This is from our SharePoint. It's a Samsung document. By the way, everything here is a series of public domain PDFs about companies that exist in our SharePoint. If I like this answer better than another, I might give Lucy a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I might wish to share this with a colleague. But what Lucy's doing is she's finding the needle in the haystack. In this live demo, this Lucy's connected to a relatively modest amount of content. About 1 million pages of content are available to this Lucy. Our customers have far more data typically, but still, page 7 of 36 is just one of those 1 million pages. Page 25 of 33 is just one of those 1 million pages. And if I go to the top and I can see through the filtering, my source list, Lucy is looking at all of the content that is available through Altimeter, eMarketer, a bit of Euromonitor, Greenbook with the grit reports, Global Web Index, Knowledge Hound, my internal SharePoints. Lucy is searching across all of them. And that's where our nearly 1 million pages of content is coming from. And this is a big use case, the idea of how do I search all these different repositories? How do I search my SharePoint CPG volume? How do I search a different SharePoint volume? In each case, here's the SharePoint, the auto volume. And so disparate sources are all being searched. Now, this is an example of with internal data. But what if I ask Lucy a question like, what are the streaming media habits of Gen X? By the way, I asked this question this morning just in advance of this demo, and Lucy remembers past questions, so she kind of filled in the blank if I wanted to click on past questions. But what are the streaming media habits of Gen X? And this time, as I scroll down, you're going to see that the sources are going to be some of our syndicated partners. Now, my company has to have a subscription to the source. So different companies have subscriptions to different sources or different partnerships for who's providing data. But in our case, we have subscription to eMarketer. We have subscription to Global Web Index. You see GWI, a lot of GWI in this. And so Lucy's providing whatever answer coming from a variety of systems. And one of the things that's remarkable about Lucy is how she puts data on a level playing field, whether it's a PowerPoint, a PDF, whether it's an audio or video, whether it's internal data or research report at one of these, one of the great research companies like a Mintel, Euromonitor, eMarketer, GWI, a Hartman Group, or others that are common across the enterprise. Now, I'm seeing that I get, I've got one answer from eMarketer and a bunch from GWI, but I might turn around and say, you know what, I really just want to know what we have from eMarketer today. And so I can filter by that. And now my question is, what are the streaming media habits of Gen X, but exclusively tied into eMarketer as the source of the answers? And there's all kinds of filtering we can do based on time, source, file type, or even the metadata that is coming from Lucy, and Lucy auto-generates all of that metadata tagging for every answer unit. No interactions from the user or company required. And then the last example, so we've shown, internal data like that would exist in SharePoint, and we connect to all kinds of different internal sources. We've shown external data like partners like an eMarketer or Global Web Index. And then I'm going to show one more example, which is I'm going to ask Lucy, what are the most popular genres of movies? And in this case, we're going to see a mix of internal, external, all of that. And so here, for example, I see a great answer on page 14 of 37 from a report from Global Web Index. But the next answer is going to be survey data from our subscription to Knowledge Hound. And one of the things that we do is Lucy's great with language, but she also knows that there are tools out there that are great at data visualization and manipulation of large volumes of numeric data. And so with a Knowledge Hound for surveys or dashboards like in a Power BI or Tableau, Lucy will understand that the data visualization, the dashboard, the tool exists that can answer it. And then we'll embed that tool inside the answer unit so that the user can get the full capabilities, in this case, of Knowledge Hound. And Lucy's done a great job to say, well, I've got a bunch of answers, but I think that this answer at Knowledge Hound fits the bill, but I might want to go a little bit deeper. And by the way, if I want to go fully into Knowledge Hound, click on the source link and Lucy will take me there. So Lucy really is an AI-powered knowledge management. Her job is to find the best answers in the different internal file systems, external subscriptions or syndicated partners, or tools like a Knowledge Hound. She searches audio, video, all forms of unstructured data in different file types, and puts it all on a level playing field to give the answer or answers to her companion, so that what would otherwise take me hours and hours should take a matter of minutes. So that's the quick demo. I've got a few other slides to kind of talk through now that we've met Lucy. And one of the keys is, Lucy's not the first knowledge management system. She's not the first to show up and say, I'd like a job at your company to help with this. But one of the things that she strives for is to drive immense efficiency. And what we just saw in the demo was, we searched through 40 different systems, 1 million pages of content, different data types, and we got answers in seconds. But the other side of efficiency is, how do you get data into the knowledge systems at all? There are a variety of competitors out there. And in general, they all go with a model of choose the data that goes in. And in a demo, to see an upload of a file or files and the setup of data, it's really pretty easy. But if you're working with large organizations with millions of pages of content, it's too much work to upload, curate, and manage all of that data. And so one of our keys is that all data ingestion is automated. We have these connectors, and these are just the connectors to the first-party file systems. We have all kinds of other connectors for tools and syndicated data sources as well. But Lucy just joins the team. When you hire Lucy, we say, well, for this use case, for this group of people that she's enabling and working with, where does their data live for the job functions she's going to help with? And you say, well, it's in these volumes in Office 365 and these 12 different SharePoints, and we've got a couple of OneDrives for business, and there's one group that adopted Google Drive, and we connect her like an employee to these with these connectors. And then Lucy reads, listens, watches, and learns whatever you share with her. We never make copies of your data. We never move your data. Many of the competing systems either become the system of record and your data is stored in their environments, or they have duplicates of your data that are stored in their system. And we don't do that. Your data lives in your environment. If you are a SharePoint environment, your data is in SharePoint. If you're G Drive, it's in Google. And we are just a good hire on the team that reads, listens, watches, and learns the data from where it lives. We never move it. We never write to it. We never append it. It makes us really friendly from a security standpoint. And the no uploading takes all of the burden off of your users for trying to get data into the system. And it automates it so you have confidence that everything that should be there is just there. Now, one of the things that's really important about any new hire is, what's the justification? I mean, there's all kinds of desires for who we should bring on the team. And it's important to be able to make the business case. In some cases, businesses have become really robust at figuring out the business case for why to bring in these knowledge management systems. But in some cases, they're still at the stage where it's intriguing. They know that this is something that others are doing, but they're not quite sure how are they going to justify it. And this is something that we could have a follow-up discussion on, and we can talk about ROI. But just, one example. Imagine an enterprise with 1,500 people. And we have studies from numerous large research and insights groups saying that the average individual is spending 10 to 25% of their time in search, in research, and trying to find data, and oftentimes quite inefficiently. And so if we're spending, 5-10 hours a week, typically every week, what if we could save 2 hours per week per person? What would that look like? And in a 1,500 person organization, it'd be the equivalent of 75 full-time people. The cost would, by a huge factor, outweigh the cost of this new hire. Now, this is just one example. We have a variety of ROI models that we can help with. But it's something to really think through. It's like, what is it? It's a good idea, but what's the business justification? How can we bring it to dollars and cents so that we can say that, if we're spending, 150, 250, whatever, 1,000 on this great new hire, that we know what the payoff is that we're striving for, and what's the business problem that is valuable enough to solve that we should solve for it. And that comes into ROI. So this being just one such example. So with that, a few tips on just how to document the business case for this. The most important thing is really to figure out what are the goals of the team? What are their pain points? This is something we do interviews of potential teams and help them with the documenting of really a persona model that will identify the pain points and try to articulate the value of that. So we meet with users, collect their input. We document the things they're trying to achieve. We document their pain points. We document where the data lives. And then we can use that to drive calculations of ROI. And it can really be important to be able to create the business case so that in a world of competing priorities, that this priority can stand out. Now, we've really started with the business case around research and insights. And it's one that from an industry standpoint, research and insight professionals have definitely been leading the way. I think if you look at the large packaged goods companies as well as retailers, but also as you get into financial services, healthcare, entertainment, and auto and other major sectors, we have these research and insight teams. They are the subject matter experts to sales, marketing, and to executive leadership. They are loaded with data that's owned and licensed. And it's been a really key area for this kind of technology for AI knowledge management to play into. But we've started to see growth within many of our customers where they're saying, well, this solves other problems in the enterprise. We have customers that, because they buy companies or they've had restructuring, there's a lot of moving parts of people and data. And so in restructuring or M&A, the idea that Lucy can read, listen, watch, and learn all of the documents of whether there's a team that's been, acquired or whether there's a bunch of moving parts, where Lucy can be the expert to the new people, to the old people, for the newly acquired data and the old data. Human resources, increasingly, Lucy's been playing a really key role of employee enablement. And whether it's onboarding new employees, the new employee has no idea what's been there before, but Lucy's already read, listened, watched, and learned it, to reduction of demands on subject matter experts so that the most valuable employees can have more focus on the valuable work they do, with Lucy being the first line of defense to say, ask Lucy before you go to the SME. We've got several customers that on the sales enablement side everywhere from sales associates to salespeople. Lucy looking through market research, account documents, planning and strategy material, and even past proposals and contracts to be able to help sales teams be able to operate more efficiently. And then there's areas like customer success as well as IT, where Lucy's reading all sorts of technical documentation, support documentation, and providing support to the front-end customer success leads or IT managers supporting organizations or audience bases with the knowledge they're able to quickly get from Lucy. So we're finding more and more places where Lucy's able to use the same things we started with in research and insights and provide them elsewhere in the organization. So those are my thoughts for the day. Hopefully that was interesting and that you liked getting a little intro to Lucy. We would love Lucy to be hired on your team, and we'd love to schedule an interview for you in the future.